Upon logging into Signagelive, one of the first things you're going to see is your player dashboard. The player dashboard is your central hub for monitoring player performance, connectivity, license information, and your content schedules. The user interface is also written in HTML5, meaning that it's fully responsive and that you can access it from mobile devices such as your phone or your tablets. And in return, you can take advantage of the full user interface whilst you're on the go. The dashboard itself is actually broken into two different sections. The KPI section that runs along the top here features four big prominent boxes, and this gives you a top-down view of what's going on your Signagelive network. The first box here is active and licensed players, and this is showing us all of the licenses that are valid on the network, and is broken down into activated, deactivated, and expired. And upon clicking on these, you can filter by this as well. Clicking on any of these KPI boxes that run along the top here will allow you to filter your network as I've just done. So if I want to check what players are active and licensed, I can click on that. If I want to click on any that have the latest content, I can click on that. If I want to check on players that aren't checking in correctly, I can click on this little one here, and that will allow me to see what players aren't checking in. And like I say, it allows you to quickly navigate through this player dashboard and see what's going on with each of your players. Going back to the boxes in particular, this second one here allows me to see what players are checking in correctly. Clicking the top section will allow me to see what I see here. If I want to filter that by players that are not checking in correctly, I can click the little part at the bottom here, and you can see I get a different view. The third box here is players with the latest content. So typically those will be the ones that have the green indicator here. That means that this player has the latest published content to it. If any players are pending content, I can click on this button here, and that will typically mean that this player in particular is not connected to the internet or connected to the Signagelive service in a while. Therefore, it has not downloaded the latest content. Again, we can filter by no status as well. And from a licensing perspective, this final KPI box allows you to see what renewals are due. In my case, I can see that I've got one player that has a renewal due in the next 30 days, and I can see if there's any renewals due on players in the next 60 days. So that's the KPI section that runs along the top there, but let's talk about the players below that. We operate on a traffic light system which goes green, yellow, red, and that will give you an indication of what's going on with your players in terms of their health status. Green means that your player is operating with healthy parameters. Amber or yellow means that your players are operating with a potential issue that might need addressing. And red is of course critical, meaning that your players are not connecting and they need attention ASAP. If you click on any of the headers that are in this player section here, you can filter from lowest to highest or highest to lowest. So if I click on content check here, I can see what player has most recently checked in. We get some more filters along the top here. We can actually change this from a compact view, which is default, which you're seeing here. I can click this little cogwheel here and I can go to comfortable, and this will give me a more comfortable view with some unique visuals on some of these parameters. Same goes for status here. I can filter these by no warnings or alerts, so that's all green. I can filter by warnings only, and I can filter by alerts only, and it will show me any players that have alerts. That means that if there's any amber or yellow or red, it is showing me any players that fit that category. In the instance that you've published content, you may see a content progress bar appear on this page too. That just means that your player is mid-downloading some content. So I'll show you what this looks like now. So I've just published something to this player here. You can see the content indicator has gone red. That is because this player has quickly identified, oh, I don't have the latest content right now. What that's now going to do is it's going to go through the process queue. So when it gets to the point at which it's trying to download the content onto the player, we're then going to get a different color bar here. We'll get a progress bar here, which gives us an update on the download status of this content. If I hit the refresh button here a few times, this should pop up. So you can see there now, I've got a content progress bar that has appeared on screen. That's telling me that this content is mid-download. And once it's finished downloading that, we should then get a green indicator. And you can see now that that content is downloaded, the indicator has gone green here. So that shows me that this player now has the latest downloaded content, and it's displaying that on my screen. With this dashboard here, another powerful feature you have is that you have the ability to customize when this screen is showing alerts. So for example, in this case, I've got memory alerts set to 90%. So when disk space is at 90% memory, it's then flagging as a red alert here. But if I wanted to change that, I could go into the KPI settings for the actual network and make changes there. To do that, I can go into settings and then KPIs here. And you can see you get a full host of different options to change when these alerts are popping through on your player dashboard. So if I go down to the content check area here, so the missed content checks, I can see that after one missed content check, I will get the amber alert. So that will turn the content check parameter to that amber yellow color that we saw earlier from our traffic lights. And after two missed content checks in this case, it will then go to the red alert. And you can customize this for pretty much all of the parameters that you see on the player dashboard. It just means that you get a bit more control over how this works. So if you knew that you had your players connected to a network that was a bit spotty here and there, you didn't want to be showing red alerts every now and then, you could set the content check frequency up higher so that you wouldn't be showing a red dashboard all the time. That's just an example. There are plenty of unique cases here, I'm sure. But you can go even more granular with this as well, and you can click on the View Player Type Specific KPI settings. That means that you can set these alerts not just for your entire network, but you can do it based on the type of player that you're monitoring. So in my case, if I wanted to set a new one, I could change this to a bright sign, and then I can set these specific parameters, but only apply it to players that fit that category. Once you've set your KPI alerts, you can just hit save here. And then you know that you've got those specific alerts just set up for that bright sign. So the bright sign will behave differently on your player dashboard compared to other player types. Finally, back on this player dashboard, you also have the ability to search here. So if I want to search boardroom like so, I can see all of the players that have boardroom in their name, and it'll allow me to filter this quickly. This just gives you a simple search functionality that allows you to quickly filter what you're seeing here on your player dashboard. Now, it's all well and good having these alerts here, but it's another thing knowing how to respond to them. If we see green and our player is actively performing content checks, then we know that our player is probably okay in displaying the content. When you see a red and an amber alert, that's when you need to start taking some action. I'm going to filter my players now by players that are not currently checking in. In our case, some of these aren't checking in because we're not using them anymore. I just haven't removed them from the network. What would I do if I'm seeing this? Well, the content check is based on your player talking back to the Signagelive cloud. Therefore, if your player's not performing content checks and it's showing that red indicator, it means your player's not able to perform the content check. It doesn't mean that it's skipping them for no reason. So the first thing to check would be that your player has power and your player has an internet connection. Because if you're missing either of those two things, then your player's not going to perform a content check. If your player's content checking but your content indicator is red, it's always worth reviewing your queues to see if there's any content in the queue ready to be published. As you saw earlier when I published my content, we had a red indicator at the point that we published new content. That was because the content was in the queue waiting to be downloaded by the player. You can monitor this queue in real time by heading to the queues area within the reporting section. So I've just published some content, as you can see here, to my 𝘗𝘭𝘢𝘺 screen. And now if I quickly jump to the dashboard, we will see that if I go checking in correctly, this player has the red indicator once again. And now if I go into reports and queues at the top here, we can see that in the config writing queue, we have that config write request there ready to get downloaded by the player. That config write contains that new content that I've just published, and because that is still in the queue here, that's why we are seeing the red indicator. Whilst this is in the queue here, the indicator is going to remain red because the player is not ready to download the content yet. But once this config write goes through the queue, like you see it's just done right now, if I now jump back to my dashboard now, that's now when I'll see that content download progress bar that we spoke about earlier. And if I refresh my dashboard once more, you'll now see that the content indicator has gone green because the config write has gone through the queue. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful on using the player dashboard today and how we can monitor our KPIs. All that to say that if you do see any red or amber indicators on your players, the first thing to check is whether your player is powered on and whether it's got an internet connection. Failing that, check the config write queue, check there's no content in the process of being downloaded to your player. And failing that, contact our support team. They're always on hand and happy to help whenever you need them. And they're just a button click away right here in our Signagelive network. I can hit ask a question and go from there. Thanks again for watching. If you have any more questions, please do not hesitate to get in touch. And with that, I will see you on the next one.